everyone, I'm JD from Willowbound Journals, and in this video I am going to be binding a multi-signature hardcover journal, and I thought I would share with you how I make my little template from scratch. I'm not sure if I've actually shared how I make it from scratch before. I know I've shared the templates I use. I have a few of them that I've kept over the years, and they're getting a bit scrappy and a bit hard to read. So I know I could definitely use these for sure, but I thought I'd make a new one, a nice one. But I'll just show you kind of the general gist of how it works for binding. So these are Reader's Digest books, which are my favorite books to make journals out of. They've just got a nice size to them and the width of the spine is nice. I like to put 3 signatures in it. What am I doing? This way. So you can see I've already marked out where my Reader's Digest holes will go. They'll go here, here, and here. Sorry, that's the end of it. So here. And I've had to use a bunch of different symbols and color coding to remind me of which holes, because sometimes Reader's Digest books are a bit taller or maybe a bit shorter. I have another one, so for my pasta box journals, this one shows me they're a bit shorter, and I can tell the ones with the stars are for the pasta box, where I put my 3 holes for the 3-hole pamphlet stitch. So if that's confusing, let me show you how I make it from scratch. And I know there's a whole bunch of different methods for binding multi-signature journals and measuring your holes. I know that's something that people get intimidated by and not sure how to do, or even if they do know how to do it, they're like, that's just too hard. I totally understand. So what I do is I just get a sheet of A4 paper, and I'm just going to fold it in half and fold it in half again. So this sort of gives me 4 sides to work on. 1, 2, 3, 4 for different things. So I might do one for Reader's Digest books here, one for my pasta box journals there, one for my chipboard journals, and one for miscellaneous books there. And then maybe I just won't touch the Reader's Digest ones because they're the ones that I use all the time. So the first thing I do is I line it up with this edge here, and then I mark it here. The next thing I do is I want to find the middle. You can definitely eyeball this. The longer I've gone making journals, the more I'm happy to eyeball, especially if it's a single signature journal. But with this one, I can tell, you know, it's about 19 centimeters. So I want it to be about 9.5 right here. Now, then I want to go in about 2 centimeters. So I'm going to go 17 and 2. And I'll just do this one a bit longer so I know that's the edge. And then I'm going to put some symbols here just in case I do add some more. And I'm just going to push them down here. And then my little key code, Reader's Digest. All right, so that's how I get my holes there for my template. Now coming in here, the first thing I do is mark out my lines here. So the way I do this is I measure the width of the spine. Now, because I've used Reader's Digest journal books a lot, I know they're 3 centimeters wide. They might be a tiny bit smaller or a tiny bit wider depending on the Reader's Digest condensed book. But I know they're typically 3 centimeters. So if they're a bit wider, I will just match this up a bit inside, or I'll put it outside the lines. So I will just kind of find the middle with the 3 centimeters there. So then we'll find the halfway point, so 1.5 centimeters, and I'm going to rule that line there. And then, because I've got 3 signatures, I know I want one on this side and one on that side, and I'm just going to roughly go about here and here. So, you know, 8 centimeters this side of the middle. Now, because again I've done this for many years over and over, I know that I kind of want, I don't need that much of a gap here. I used to put like a huge gap between the cover and here, but I've put a bit of a bigger gap with the middle ones than here. Originally, I would space them out evenly, have the exact same spacing here as to here, but yeah, I'm totally okay with it being a little bit in from the side. Otherwise you get this giant gap here. Cool, so then all I do is I'm going to rule this line, and something I do as well, if I just want to eyeball it, I will just do this and just move my ruler until I find, you know, where I want to put it. So I'm going to rule that line there, and then I'm going to rule the line here. Now another little tip is that I like using a ruler that I can see through, because then I don't even need to measure that other line, because I have got my ruler, like these little spacings here, I can use those to find where I want to put it. I can tell I've ruled my line a little bit off center, so I'm just going to do it from this side first. And we're going to go about here, like that. And so that's why I'm kind of ignoring my own markings that I made, because I'm just going to go off my ruler. So I do just want to put this one a little bit off. See that? I've gone a bit off. Look at that. Oh my goodness. But everything is fine. You can always go back and change it. All right. So now that I've readjusted that line, let me just check this. That's fine. So yeah, the more you do it, the more you kind of learn the spacings, and you can kind of just eyeball it. So yeah, that was one method where I showed you ruling the different markings, but because I've got a clear ruler, I just like using these, so I know when that line is matched up here, I can rule that there. And then the other method is to just use this method, just, you know, how far apart from the spine do you want it, from the hinge do you want it, and just do that. So there's different methods you can use. I'm trying to cover all bases to help. When I first started, I measured every little thing, yeah? I did measure every little thing and have it very precise, but now I just kind of like, yeah, it's about that far from there. Now, this is the one where I do want it pretty much the same everywhere. So I'm going to go match it up down here and mark my holes here. Sorry, not using the washi tape that I'm using for the spine is not letting you see very well where I'm marking, but hopefully I can explain it well enough. But if you have any questions, just put them down in the chat. Okay, so then I'm just going to mark those. Next thing I'm going to do is grab my awl, and I'm going to poke my holes through there. And down here. So yes, I prepare the spine first. Okay, there we go. Now, then we come to prepare the signatures. So I've got 3 of them here, they're all ready to go. And I'm just going to find the middle. Just double check that they're the right way up. And I use long bobby pins to hold my pages in place. But you can use paper clips, bulldog clips, any sort of clip. Now what I do is I like my pages to be a bit inside the cover. Some other people like them over the edge, others like them flush with the edges. I like mine slightly in, so I just want to match up, you know, a gap at the top and the bottom that's equal. And I want to open it up, and then I just, line it up. Grab my template. Let me open that up a bit more so you can see. Line this up with the edge of the book. and then mark my holes like that. So real simple. Now I just poke my holes through here. I've got my embroidery thread, and I like to leave that needle in that middle hole before I poke that hole, because otherwise the holes can wiggle and the alignment can come out. Now I've just noticed that I am upside down. So let's see if I can get this back through. So this is good to show in real time. Little errors can be made. Don't stress. It is all good. So I want to find my front. We've all probably done that before, bound in something upside down. All right, so coming in, it doesn't matter if you start with the front or the back one. I used to start with the back actually, but over the years I've changed it. Now I start at the front. All right, so then I go through the bottom hole, and all the while I'm pulling it tight. I'm not just going through all the holes quickly in succession. I'm pulling everything tight before I get to the next one. And then I want to poke this hole, and I poke this hole last because these ones are already done. If I poked all three, there's a chance that the holes could wiggle out of place and the alignment goes out. Oh, so first of all, I do want to come through this middle hole, then come back through here, and then come through here, pulling it tight, both this one and pull this one tight too. I like to just push it in here at the edges as well, just to be sure they're not sticking out. And then I'm going to wiggle, wiggle, wiggle until it's tight. But I also check the outside just in case something has caught. And I want to hear that snap. Hear that? I want to hear that snap. So I know it's quite taut. And then I will trim up the thread and we'll just trim that off. Now let me mention other binding methods for measuring in case you're like, that looks so hard or that looks so tedious. There are other methods. So some people get a cradle. There's this thing called a binder's cradle or something like that. It's like a wooden cradle that comes like that. So you just put your signature in there and just with your needle. Some people use like a phone book underneath or like a foam thing underneath. So they get their signatures and they open it up flat and then they just go into the pages, into the signature. So I'm going to use my bobby pins again. Another method is, instead of this type of template, people will use grid paper, graph paper, which definitely makes sense, having grid paper, because then you don't have to do all those measurements. You can just use the grid lines to show you where to go once you mark those. Other people cut out the exact width and height of the spine and fold it in half and half again to get their holes. That way there's no measuring required. So if you're like, I can't be bothered measuring, then that method might work for you, where you just fold the template to get your holes. So the reason why I choose this method, I don't want to have to create a new template each time I make a journal. So I just like reusing these. And if I don't have the right holes marked up, I'll measure them and make new ones, rather than cutting out a whole new template for each different type of journal. I just use the same template over and over again. So that's why I don't measure like the exact width of the spine each time. you could definitely keep those, you know, for the Reader's Digest books. You could definitely keep that same template for those books. And I find, you know, once you just do the initial measuring, it's all just a repetitive process basically, and very simple once you get those measurements. I find it gets tricky when you have books that are like 4.25 centimeters wide with the spine. That's where I get a bit stuck with my measurements. Sometimes I have to use my calculator. But now these days, I tend to just eyeball it. Like I said, I just use my ruler. I don't measure it. I just use my ruler to find these lines. Because you're kind of measuring two things. You're measuring the lines, the width apart, and you're measuring the holes. So there's different methods of measuring both. I tend to just use my clear ruler as my way to measure the lines. And I use my paper template for the holes. So yeah, if this method doesn't work for you, definitely look up different tutorials. There's so many on YouTube of how to bind journals, how to do different templates. So yeah, if this one is not doing it for you, definitely don't stop. Like, don't be discouraged. There are other great ones out there, and that's the thing. There's different ones to suit different people. I love the method of the grid paper and the folding method. I think that's great. They're awesome. I just can't be bothered making a new template each time. Whereas other people might be like, I can't be bothered measuring each time. I'd rather make a template every time. So just whatever suits you is the one that is best for you. All right, final signature. So I'm going to open it up, find the middle. So these are just simple writing journals. I've got 6 of them coming. I had a request last year for some writing journals, and it's taken me this long to finally finish them. I had the covers made last year, I just didn't have the pages done. So all 6 are ready to go. I just have to bind them all. So I'm starting off with this one. And let's see, I just want to mark my holes again. Yep. And then go through the middle. And we will thread the needle. So let me know if you bind your own journals, what method do you prefer? And maybe you have a different method to any of the ones that I mentioned. I've got a knot in my thread. Don't you love that? Okay, let me have a look if I can loosen that up. Oh, yay, okay. So I thought I'd use black embroidery thread because all of these journals have like these black line drawings on the covers. Some have butterflies, some have more of those vintage elements, some have chandeliers, which is really cool. I like the ones with the chandeliers on them. Some have flowers. Oh, there's a chandelier. All right, final signature. Let's do this. So I use a tapestry needle, so it has a wide eye and it's got a blunt end. So definitely love those two aspects about this needle. I just got the tapestry needle from Spotlight, and I got the all just from a cheap shop. I wish I still had them, but I know you can get them from eBay as well. the embroidery thread I've gotten from the local cheap shop as well, but actually this one I believe came from my grandma. I got a whole bunch of embroidery thread passed down from my grandma, so I feel like all the journals that I'm making at the moment are extra special because the thread comes from my grandma, who is very crafty. She did embroidery, she did crochet, she knitted, and very, very creative, very crafty. Both of my grandmas were crafty. My other grandma did decoupage, painting, and sewing. She could make clothes. So both my grandmas, very creative, but in different ways, which I love. All right, so final one to tie here. Beautiful. I just double knot it. Sometimes I triple knot it if I feel like I want to do that. And then remove the bobby pins, and there we go. We have a lovely bound 3 signature journal, and there's my threads on the spine. Now, some people do love them perfectly spaced, perfectly straight, which I used to be that person when I first started, but now I don't mind if some are a little bit, wonky, some are close together. I think it gives it that kind of more genuine handmade look. So love it, love it, love it. You could definitely just eyeball the whole thing if you wanted. But the more you do it, the more you'll learn your own tips and tricks, the things that help you. And the more you'll be able to eyeball it if you want to. So just give you a look kind of like in the middle there. See that? Got that nice line there. That helps me as well. When I have a busy washi tape like this, if I do make a mistake with my lines, it's not really noticeable because it's just so busy. The line just sort of blends in. And that's why I use a blue pen as well. You might be like, why are you using a blue pen? It will show up. You could use black pen or whatever, but yeah, I don't mind, especially because I've got such a busy washi tape. And all my washi tapes tend to be busy. Like, I just use the William Morris wide tapes. And yeah, I like how it turned out. It's now a journal. Yay! And all just using a simple template. So I will continue using this and do my other markings. I kind of feel like I don't want to part with these. They're very messy looking, and it's time I did a new one. But these have stayed with me for years and have bound hundreds of journals. So I'm a bit attached to them. How ridiculous that I can be attached to something like this. So I was thinking I should like slot these into a pocket in a journal or something, and that way I can still keep them. But I have this as my main one from now on. And that would be good if I can kind of consolidate and turn 3 into 1 instead of having all of those from all various projects over the years. So yeah, I hope that was helpful. But if you have any questions, do let me know in the comments, and let us know your preferred method for binding and any of your own little tips and tricks. We all have our different ones and different things that work for us. And yeah, I will get to work binding the other 5 journals, and finally can do a flip through of these at some point in the future. Hopefully not too far away. Awesome. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any video requests or any tutorials you want to see, if you have any questions about making journals, any struggles or challenges, feel free to chuck them in the comments too, or email me. All my information is down below in the description box, and I will see you in the next video. Bye guys. Special thank you to my beautiful patrons who supported me in December. If you would like to support me in the month of January, I would be so ever grateful. Becoming a patron gets you access to extra videos, including my monthly journal series where I make a journal from start to finish each month. The Ruby tier gets you access to every single digital kit from my Etsy, as well as a new kit each month. And there's different tiers. There's some mail tiers and a journal tier as well, so feel free to check those out. If you'd like to take any of my courses, those are down below in the description box as well, and all the links and places to find me are down there too.